And welcome back to Capitol Tonight. Well, as we reported yesterday, a report by the former Chief Judge Judith Kaye that investigated the actions of Governor Patterson in connection to a domestic violence incident with his top aide, David Johnson, found that he had done nothing illegal, but it did criticize his judgment. Now, reaction to this report is still coming in, and among those who disagrees with some of what's in it is my next guest. David Grandeau is the former head of the State Lobbying Commission, which was replaced by the Commission on Public Integrity when former Governor Eliot Spitzer took office. David, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Liz.
So this report you find problematic?
No, I spoke about it on my blog, and I don't find it problematic. What I found was, in reading it, I kept waiting for what the big deal was. I mean, everything I read in there was pretty much what we had already seen in media reports.
Right.
And I never found the gotcha part that, we all look for when it comes to New York State government.
But was there supposed to be a gotcha? I mean, is that, the report was...
Well, that's part of the problem, Liz, is that we all expect a gotcha. So if we don't get the gotcha, we all think that there's a whitewash or some kind of conspiracy.
Right.
And I think that's from past experience with New York State government and its officials. There's always a gotcha somewhere. But as I was reading it, I did notice a section of it that to me just jumped right out and said, here's something that the governor did do that was wrong.
And we have it actually right here.
Right, that they're not talking about, that no one's talking about, that no one's commenting on. And I understand it's not the big gotcha that everyone wants to see. It's not a crime, a violation of the penal law. It's not some salacious type of event.
Right.
But it is a violation of the public officers law.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, I mean, what people really expected, or what was sort of speculated at the outset of this, is that perhaps the governor had engaged in some sort of witness tampering, or he had inappropriately used his position of considerable power and influence to somehow convince this woman, Sharuna Booker, who said she was the victim of a pretty significant domestic incident on October 31st, 2009, of not pressing charges against his top aide, David Johnson, and not going to court to seek an order of protection. That's pretty much what the crux of all this was. When you read this report, and you're an attorney, were you satisfied with what Judith Kaye said, that there was no reason to pursue that aspect?
Look, the legal analysis that Judge Kaye applied to that particular statute is flawless. I don't think anyone could argue with it. And that's what lawyers get paid a lot of money to do on one side or the other. But I had the advantage of not reading it for that purpose. I have my own little area, my own little niche when it comes to integrity. And, I'll read that in the big context picture of listening to you talk to somebody else or reading the newspapers. But my own professional experience is what's there? What facts are in this investigation that are different than what everyone's expecting it to be? What's outside the box? That's how I read it. And I found it pretty quickly.
It's on page for those people who are actually interested in these sort of things. And the report I found readable. I mean, sometimes these things are completely unreadable. And there is a lot of exhaustive detail about who went to whom and where they did it and when, and the state police did this, etc. But on page 34 is when this instance that you're talking about starts, and it has to do with the governor having his press staff contact Ms. Booker and ask to write a statement that would say actually that she didn't find the incident with David Johnson so violent. That's what this is about.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I didn't care what the statement said. I mean, other folks can draw other conclusions about whether the governor and his staff should be trying to mold what the public opinion will be about what he did. What I found interesting is the governor used his considerable resources as the governor to have his press office prepare a press statement for a private citizen. That's a direct violation of the public officers law. You're not supposed to use your position to benefit someone outside of the governmental role. There was no reason, no valid governmental reason for the governor to do that. We've seen it before in the Dopp case. That's what Dopp got fined all that money.
You're talking about Trubergate and Darren Dopp, the former communications
using state resources
for Eliot Spitzer.
Using state resources for a non-governmental purpose. We saw it in the Yankee case. The Public Integrity Commission in that case, after 7 or 8 months, and shortly after they got the governor not to sign the bill that would have eliminated them, found that he had used his position to solicit tickets for his son and his son's friend.
Right.
Well, this is the exact same thing.
But sir, that's actually, jury's still out on that because Judith Kaye has not issued a report on that yet, which is sort of odd because the timing of this, you would think that you would want to get rid of this all in one one fell swoop and sort of, okay, be done. Instead, it's a dragging out of, and there are people who say that the Yankees tickets incident is actually quite a bit more potentially difficult and problematic for the governor. Already he's been charged with lying by the PIC.
Which is the standard operating procedure for the Public Integrity Commission. They did that to DOP as well. They take you in for an interview, and then if they don't like what you said or it doesn't fit their role, they refer it as a perjury charge to the district attorney. I happen to think that what the PIC did to the governor on the Yankee tickets is the equivalent of an ethical lynching. They had a governor that they thought was on his way out the door. They sat on an investigation for 4 or 5 months. They waited until after the governor vetoed the very bill that would have eliminated them. And people don't realize, because we didn't know at the time, while that bill was sitting on the governor's desk, the Public Integrity Commission literally had a gun to his head, ethical gun to his head, because they had an active investigation. Didn't we deserve to know that before he vetoed that bill?
Okay, before we get into the PIC and your history with it, because there is one actually.
Oh, sure.
This you believe that they should take up. This particular, just because Judith Kaye has said, I find no criminality here, except in the case of the Bronx District Attorney should look into David Johnson and charges that, and is already doing that, charges
Right.
that might be brought against him in the domestic violence incident. You believe that the Public Integrity Commission should take up this particular matter, and they do not need a referral to do so.
Oh, absolutely not. And quite frankly, I received phone calls from people that read my blog and said, yeah, it's pretty obvious. You don't have to be a brain surgeon, rocket scientist, or someone experienced in this area. The law is clear. He used his press secretary to help a private citizen. That's a violation of the public officer law.
And it would be
it's
a
not
fine,
complicated.
right? It would be a fine,
It's
most likely?
a fine of up to $10,000, and you may be removed from office.
But we have not seen that happen as of yet.
You haven't, but the ability is there to do it. My point is they should be doing their jobs. I mean, as soon as that report came out yesterday, someone at the Public Integrity Commission should have been reading it for that type of a violation. In addition to the press officer, I was thinking about this on the ride down, I also read that his government lawyer was providing information to his private attorney. Well, that's similarly a violation of the same statute. The government lawyer's job is not to help Governor Patterson, the private person.
Well, and we saw this actually same problem with the Troopergate investigation, sort of the providing of information from one government entity to another entity that is controlled by the executive, that's investigating the executive. I mean, a lot of problems with the structure, inherent structure of the PIC. And when Eliot Spitzer actually created it, I remember reporters asked him, wait, don't you control this thing? And why are you doing that? And his basic answer, paraphrased, was, because I can.
Right.
So the thing is, though, your history with these guys, I mean, you were the head of the Lobbying Commission.
Mm-hmm.
You were an executive director. When it merged with the Ethics Commission, you were bounced.
The only one, yeah.
And there were actually, the good government people went to bat for you, people like the NYPIRGs of the world, and said they thought you were the only watchdog actually with teeth. But don't you have some sour grapes here?
No, no. Look, do I, in fact, it's the exact opposite. When that first happened, I actually worked actively with Herb Teitelbaum to try to help him in the area of lobbying, because I knew it. And quite frankly, Liz, my life has gotten nothing but better since I've left there, both from a stress standpoint, a financial standpoint.
You look very rested.
Thank you. And I have time to do what I want to do. But what's happened is a lot of my friends were still there. Many have left. They just couldn't deal with these people. And over time, it's gotten progressively worse. And what we had built, when I say we, myself, Pat Bulgaro, Peter Machete, some of the commissioners that had been there, some no longer with us, was something pretty special and meaningful. And the PIC has not followed that legacy. In fact, they've gone the exact opposite direction, so that every time you look at something from an integrity standpoint in New York, you wonder, what have they done wrong? What have they screwed up? What have they scandalized? You don't have any faith, and I asked you the question earlier, do you have any faith that PIC will handle this matter
They've had
correctly?
a lot of troubles. That's the problem, and a lot of
You're
negative
being,
news
you're being
stories.
charitable. They've had a lot of
But do you
troubles.
believe that this entity, this Uber entity, that's what Eliot Spitzer wanted to do, sort of make it easier to have one watchdog, one-stop shopping for government oversight, if you will. Do you believe it really should be broken back up into the two arms that it had before?
We've had this conversation before also. I actually suggested putting the agencies together to Eliot Spitzer's transition panel before I was ever out of there. I still think that if you get the right people, having one agency handling all of ethics and integrity and lobbying is the right way to go. Unfortunately, we don't have the right people.
Do you want that job back?
No, absolutely not. Let me just say it unequivocally. My wife will not be pleased with me doing anything like that. So I don't want it. But it's the people. And unfortunately, the people at PIC have proven themselves so incapable of doing the job well that the only way we get something better is to get rid of them.
Well, we will be following up with them, of course, to get their reaction. I want to thank you very much, David
My
Grandeau,
pleasure.
for coming in. It's always good to see you.